Now, before the break, we promised that we would have a special guest up on stage now to digest and process all we've heard so far, and that is Glenn Fogel, the CEO of Booking.com. So I'd like you all to put your hands together to invite him here up on stage to sit down with me. Ladies and gentlemen, Glenn Fogel. How are you?
I'm doing very well.
Welcome to Brussels. Welcome to the Destination Europe Summit. Good to have you here.
It's good to be here.
How have you found the event so far? What have been your main takeaways, perhaps, of what you've heard this morning?
Well, I like that Commissioner Breton said I was a good citizen. I like that. And I felt good about that. I also thought it was amusing, people talking about trains and, the issue we need more night trains, and then we just should get our day trains working. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I grew up and I spent time in America, and I'm thinking, well, we'd just like to have any trains, really. You don't know bad trains until you travel to America.
Okay. Let's take a look at what we discussed this morning. And that is, of course, coming out of the pandemic. Even though I don't like talking about the past, it's important because that was such a destructive time for the sector. They'd never experienced anything like that. So I guess my first question is, how is Booking.com doing now? Did you emerge stronger from the pandemic? Because it looks like everything is back to normal, if you look at the figures, of course. So would you agree, perhaps, that no lessons were learned in the area of sustainability, for example?
All right, so there are a couple things to unpack that you brought up there. So first, I would politely disagree about not talking about the past, because we should always remember the past so we can learn from things that were done then, things that were done well, we should be very proud of, things that could have been done better, that next time when a terrible thing happens, that we can act better. So we shouldn't ignore that at all. And I think about that a lot. How can I be better prepared? How could our company be better prepared? How could the industry be better prepared? That's one. In an issue where we are, obviously a tremendous recovery, and we're all pleased with what has happened. We're not there yet. Inbound from Asia is not there yet. Comment made earlier about Chinese travelers to Europe, not there yet. Hopefully it will be there. We're looking forward to it. But one of the things in our industry is every day something's happening somewhere that's an issue that we got to deal with. And that's just the nature of the business, and we have to always be agile and move rapidly, and that's what we're trying to do.
So constantly kind of in crisis mode, you mean?
Yeah, that's the way it is. You're always thinking about how can I do a better job of making sure I'm advancing our business, that's what I'm trying to do, or someone who's a regulator, make sure we're trying to make things better so we'll have a better future.
And we saw last year what I guess people in the sector called revenge travelers, those making up for time they lost during COVID when they were stuck at home, and they were ready to pay anything just to get out of their 5 kilometers where they were stuck for so long. Do you see the trend again this summer, or do you think that inflation is taking its toll on people here in Europe?
So I have to be careful, because, as you know, we're coming to the end of a quarter, and we are a public company. So I have to be very careful what I say about how we're doing. But I can certainly say about the industry. That term, revenge travel, it's not a great term. It sounds, evil, revenge. But it is true. People were trapped, and people were missed out on so many important life events. And they wanted to recover. They wanted to go out there. And last summer was amazing. And right now, there are a lot of people traveling right now. And we're seeing some of the issues. It was interesting, the question was, will we be prepared this summer for the airports? Or will be like, my wife came over, was visiting, and she spent almost 2 hours here at the airport in Brussels yesterday in a line to go through immigration, passport control, and security. 2 hours is a long time. And the question, and that's just, we're not even to July yet. So what's it going to be next month? I don't know. Maybe there's more staffing coming on or not. I don't know. But I do know, though, I'd rather have long lines and lots of people than what the pandemic was, with no lines and no people.
And you mentioned staffing. You might see staffing, but of course that takes a lot of time as well, because people need to be vetted if they're working in security in the airports. Sure. Huge, huge challenges. But just back on whether people are thinking now when they travel with their head or they're thinking with their purse. And especially the smaller enterprises, SMEs, are you doing anything to support them?
Well, I think we do a tremendous amount for them, and we always have, and that's basically the way we started our business. Booking.com started by going out to the SME hoteliers who didn't have an ability to get tourists from around the world the way the big international chains could. So we were providing a platform that enabled a hotelier who didn't have to pay any money at all. We don't charge anything to put your hotel on our platform. We only ask to get paid when we've actually provided you with, as we say, a head in a bed. And it's interesting in Europe right now, as there's more and more of this, I'll call it chainification. The chains continue to develop. And this is an issue for the small entrepreneur, the small family-owned hotel. We are providing a mechanism for them to be able to compete better. And that's what I want to continue to do, continue to provide services. Again, we do it in a way that it doesn't cost, it makes a big difference, because let's face it, SMEs don't have a lot of capital, they don't have a lot of money in the bank, they can't afford to invest the way that a large international chain can. We're providing an equal playing field, and that's really, I think, very important. If we want to maintain what is a very important part of the tourism industry in Europe, which is those small, individual, unique places, we need to provide a way for them to succeed. And that is what I'm trying to do at Booking.com.
Is the risk, I suppose, that many of them close down as they try to translate policies, perhaps redacted here in Brussels or in EU capitals, obligations put on them to go green, to be carbon neutral, but they can't afford perhaps to even pay their bills?
Well, I certainly hope that won't happen. And one of the things that we've been very proud of is what we call our sustainability badge, our program that we put together to enable hoteliers, properties of any kind, to be able to join so they can be noted for what they're doing to be green. And we provide all sorts of information, all sorts of programming. We're willing to work with them to say, look, here's how you can do some things. Now, we don't go forward and say, look, we'll go buy you LED lighting for your place. But we do is provide them what we think will be valued. And then we give them a badge. It's a green leaf on the platform. When you do a search, you'll see a hotel that has 1 green leaf, 2 green leaves, 3 green, and the more leaves you have, the more sustainable you are. And the great thing is this enables, it gives a reason for a hotelier to want to do something that is good for the world, good for the environment. Here's the interesting thing though. I believe in the long run, so many people who say that they want to travel sustainably will actually act that way. But right now, it's not that big a number who really we are seeing who are differentiating. It's something that we're working on. And I think we have a big role to play to show and make sure people understand that this is a sustainable way, because people say, well, I don't know how to do it. Well, we're providing a way to know how to do it. And I'm hoping over time, more and more people will choose the sustainable option over the less sustainable option. And that will help all of us.
Yeah, tricky though, isn't it, with this cost of living crisis that we're experiencing now here in Europe?
It's terribly difficult for many of the smaller hoteliers. Some of the people who are, let's face it, wages are going up, inflation, they had to pay higher wages to the people who work there. Now we know that the average daily rate has gone up too, but many of them are being squeezed. Again, it's one of the great things about our platform is that at least they don't have to pay for the distribution costs, the marketing costs, unless they actually have gotten the revenue already. That's a great thing for them. And there's so many ways. Again, the idea in our business is to, our reason for existing is to provide value to both sides, the traveler and the supplier. That's the reason we exist. If we don't provide real value, nobody has to use us. Every day, travelers come to our site. The overwhelming majority, just such a high number, I won't give it away because again, competition and all that, but I'll tell you, it's an incredible number of people. They show up at our site, they go through all the different choices, they use all the information that we spend a tremendous amount of money putting on the site, and then that traveler does not book with us. What they do is, perhaps they call the hotel directly, or they go to the hotel's website, or a mobile app, or something like that. We get paid zero for all that service we provide at that time.
Are you okay with that?
I'm okay with it because it's worked so far, and it enables a reason to come on. I'm okay with that so far.
But you might change it if it's not working?
Well, if something doesn't change in a business, you don't have a choice. You have to change it. Right now, it's working okay. At the same time, we're providing a great thing for the, the services to the travelers for the suppliers. They don't have to use us. If we're not providing them with actual value, there are lots of choices for them to use. We have tremendous number of competitors. Every day, we have to provide that value. And sometimes I don't think that's really recognized by some people in the industry.
And just one final point, perhaps, on the EU Commission's plans to go green and the Green Deal. Do you think it's adequate? It's supporting SMEs enough?
Well, I won't talk directly about that, but here's an interesting thing. So there was no plan at all. We came out on our own and said, look, we are a player in this industry, and we believe it's important. So we're going to spend our own money. I'm going to devote our own resources. I'm taking IT people who could be doing something else. And I said, no, this is a priority for us. Sustainability is a priority for us. So this isn't going to produce more profits today or tomorrow, but we're going to do it because it's the right thing to do. So we do it, and we come out with it, and we put this thing out. We now have over 550,000 properties around the world have joined our travel sustainability program. Here's the interesting thing. So we're doing all this, and we think we're doing the right thing, and now all of a sudden, I start hearing about, well, that's not good. This should be centralized and government run. And we're not going to allow you to have that private program that says sustainable. And I'm saying, so we stop this that's doing something good? And how long do we have to wait until your thing comes forward? And to me, it just doesn't make any sense. What we're doing is something that's good. Why would anybody want to stop it?
So a lot of uncertainty in your head there. Just looking ahead, so we mentioned it as well earlier this morning about the digital future, also a big ambition of the European Commission, and on the top of the tongue of most people here in Brussels. Booking.com, of course, already on the way there, a major investor as well in AI. How do you see the company evolve in this way? And as we mentioned, SMEs, how can they as well use it to support and be more competitive?
Yeah, so again, a lot of issues that you're mentioning here. So technology changes very rapidly, and new things are coming out all the time. We've been dealing with AI for over a decade. Much of our business is dependent on machine learning models and such. Now, for many people, the first time they heard about large language models, these chat AI type things, was in November when the announcement came out. Oh my God, and all these things, right? Well, obviously, it's an example of how fast technology changes. And now, all of a sudden, we need to regulate that too. And it's uncertain, how does one develop the regulations that are good for society, but at the same time, don't stop what could be very, very good services for people. It's very hard when things are changing so rapidly. Now, if you're a small player in an industry like travel, though, you just throw up your hands and say, look, I have no idea about any of this, and I don't know how to handle it, and I don't know what. I just hope that it doesn't hurt me. So you take something like somebody goes onto a chat AI service, and they type in, I want to take a trip, I want to go visit somewhere in Europe. Well, a hotelier has no idea, a small one especially, how am I going to be listed? How am I going to show up there or not? Booking.com, because of our experience and all the things we're working on, we know how to do this. We know how to make this happen better. We have thousands of technologists. I have a tremendous number of people who are doing AI stuff. We'll be able to work with this. Now, the danger, of course, is when you end up with regulations that come out that are favoring one area versus another area. So we need a level playing field, that if there are going to be rules about AI, it has to apply to everybody, not just some people. That's one. The second thing is, and I think it's mentioned a little bit, is how is this going to work with different jurisdictions having different rules? As a global company, and don't forget, almost every hotel in Europe is global in the sense you get customers from all over the world come visiting. How are we going to handle all the different rules if Europe has one rule, America has another rule? What about within Europe if the member states have different rules, and China has a different rule, and India has a different rule? This is going to be very complex, and I just hope that the regulators and the governments get together and are able to think very carefully and thoughtfully about how to develop these new ground rules that is good for everybody, and we'll see what happens.
Because this morning, Thierry Breton, the commissioner, was very confident that those rules would be abided by and they wouldn't scare off any companies.
I heard him say that.
Let's wait and see. Another thing that tourism stakeholders have been voicing concerns about is the fragmentation of EU policies affecting the sector. This word vision, we've heard it again a few times this morning. Would you like to see more vision in the sector? And also perhaps would you like to see this European tourism body we heard about, or more meetings take place among ministers? Like, what do you think needs to happen to shake up the sector?
Okay, so there are two things. It's great to have a vision, okay? Visions are wonderful. In the end, it's easy to have visions. They're like ideas, you know, 1 or 2 euros, you have an idea. It costs a lot more to actually execute that vision. I believe one of the most important things is let's get the basics done right now. There's so much inefficiency. There's so much frustration. The fact it takes so long and it's so hard to go through different types of the processes. Our vision at Booking.com is to have a thing we call the connected trip. Because we know that for most people, planning your travels, planning your holidays is a difficult process. If, for example, anybody who here has booked their own flight, you know how difficult it is if you have a family of 4 to do it all. You'll find out which flight is good, which one not. By the time you finally finish and book your flight, the idea that at that point you're now going to get your hotel is almost zero. It's a very small number. Why? Because it was so hard. You want to go get a drink. You don't want to look at hotels, right? That shouldn't be. It should be easy. People can go out and they can get a mortgage on a house easier than to do a travel holiday. It's crazy. So we're trying to develop this, what we call bringing it all together, make it easier for people to do it. But that's not something we need the governments to work on. And the problem is, if a government starts putting things together that make it harder for a private enterprise to do that, that's actually making it less efficient. What we need governments to do is, can we please have enough runways at airports? Can we have ground transportation that is sustainable from the airport to the center city? Can we have enough people staffed for the security at the airport? There's so many things that shouldn't take a lot of effort. It's not a lot of technology is needed to make sure, okay, how many takeoffs and landings do we have? How many people are on the planes? So how many people are going to come through passport control? It's easy math. It's not requiring linear algebra. Regular algebra will figure that one out. And I just don't understand, why did my wife have a 2-hour wait yesterday?
I feel for your wife. We all know what that feeling is like. And then we have as well spontaneous strikes. You know, in Europe, in some countries, we love to strike.
Yeah, that's not good for travel, but it happens. That's an issue, obviously. Look, labor, capital, having the arguments. This goes back, a couple hundred years and trying to decide what is right. I believe that we should always try and work together. There are always a number of stakeholders that we have to deal with. One of the very important one is employees. Very important. If you don't pay them well, they will go somewhere else. If you don't provide a good environment, they won't be enthusiastic. If you don't provide a reason that we are here together trying to accomplish something, they will go someplace that actually has meaning, so that when they spend their days working, they actually feel they're accomplishing something that matters. I believe travel is a great thing. I've been here now at this company for 23 years. And people say, Glenn, why are you still working? You're 61 years old. Why are you doing it? And I do it because I believe that travel matters. I believe traveling around the world, I believe coming to different parts of the world actually makes people understand the world better. You know, I say this all the time, so I apologize to people who've heard me say it before. But there's a great line from a book written by an American over 125 years ago, a famous author called Mark Twain. He was paid to travel to Europe. He was a journalist. The newspaper paid him to come to Europe and the Middle East. And then he went home and he wrote a book. And the book is called Innocents Abroad. And in it he writes that travel is fatal to prejudice, bigotry, and narrow-mindedness. And I believe that. And I believe by us doing travel better, getting more people to go around and see other parts of the world, it's wonderful. Now, we have to do it right. We have to do it sustainably. We have to take into account the communities that are impacted and all those things. But in the long run, travel makes the world better.
Travel makes the world a better place, and of course, seamless travel and having a great experience while you travel too. And that's why we're all here today at the Destination Europe Summit. And we had Glenn Fogel, the CEO of Booking.com. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.